What is up, guys? Welcome to the shipping video. We're going to be teaching you all about the terms, how it works. I'm dreading making this video because it's very confusing and it may take a few times to really understand it or to memorize all the terms and stuff, but that's no big deal. If you're ever contacting your supplier, you can always come back to this video. If they use an abbreviation and you don't know what it means, come back to the video and then you could figure out what it means or get a better understanding if you didn't catch it the first time watching this video. So in the last video, I taught you about air shipping and sea shipping and how one's faster, one's slower, and one's more money, one's less money. That was all in the last video, and I taught you what I recommend doing. So air shipping at first and then sea shipping later once you figure out that your product sells well. That way you can get your shipping costs down and you can order in higher quantities, which would be more beneficial if you use sea shipping. You can get your pricing down. So I talked about that all in the last video, but now this video we're going to be talking more in detail about how it all works because it can be very confusing, especially sea shipping. So the first two things I want to talk about are phrases for us and phrases for our supplier. And your supplier may use these terms and it may be beneficial if you use these terms to make you sound more educated. That way they respect you more when it comes to negotiating, or it doesn't make you look like a newbie. So on this side, we're going to have us. So it's going to be you. We're going to put you at the top. And then this side, it's going to say supplier. So that's going to be your supplier. Now, one thing that we can call us is the buyer because we are buying product from the supplier. So that makes the supplier the seller. So we are the buyer, they are the seller. Now, it sounds weird because we are selling on Amazon, so you want to think of yourself as the seller, but that's not the case when it comes to shipping because we are buying from the manufacturer and they are selling to us. So that's how it's going to work for shipping. Another thing is we are going to be the consignee and they are going to be the consignor. Now that's another word that they might use is use consignee for you or them as the consignor. And so consignee is us, consignor is them. Another thing is going to be importer and exporter. Now we are going to be the importer because we are importing the goods that we bought from our supplier, and that means they are the exporter. So they are exporting what we bought to our country, and then that makes us the importer because we're importing what we bought into our country, into our hands basically. So you are going to be the buyer, the consignee, and you're going to be the importer. They are going to be the seller, the consignor, and the exporter. So those are the terms for you and your supplier that you may see quite frequently that you're gonna need to know. And use it as much as possible when you're negotiating and whenever you're talking to them. That way you sound like you're more educated on this topic and therefore bringing you more respect by them, and they may not try to push you over as much. So that's always good to use. Now let's go on to shipping terms that are going to be thrown around a lot. So the first term you're going to hear a lot is going to be carrier. So we're going to put that over here. Now a carrier is going to be a person or company that transports goods or products for another person or company, and they are responsible from taking the products from A to B. Now examples of that would be UPS, DHL, FedEx, or smaller companies that we don't really know about. But those are the most trusted names. So that is going to be your carrier. Now there are other words that we can also call DHL and UPS and FedEx, but we'll get into that in just a minute. So first, they are considered a carrier technically, and especially a lot of small companies, they are also carriers. So whoever takes your products from A to B, one place to another, is going to be a carrier, and that is what they're going to do for you, and that is it. Now the next phrase that you're going to hear a lot when it comes to shipping is going to be customs broker. So we're going to throw that up over here. What a customs broker does is they're going to help you get your product from one border to another. So if we're buying from China, they're going to help you get it from the Chinese border to say the US border. And the reason for that is there's going to be a lot of documents and regulations, federal regulations that you're going to have in your country, and doing it on your own is going to be very, very, very difficult and a huge headache. So they're going to make that process simpler. They're going to, do the paperwork for you. All you have to do is sign, and they take all the stress off. You do have to pay them obviously, but it is worth it. So they're going to help you get your goods from one border to another. And say in the United States, we have the CBP, which is Customs and Border Protection. And there are regulations, federal regulations that you have to follow to make sure that it is not an illegal product coming into the country. And the customs broker is going to handle all of those legal things for you, figure it out, get it through and past border protection, make sure it's a good product, make sure it's not illegal, make sure it's allowed in the United States and passes all the regulations. And that is just what they specialize in. That's all they do. And in just a minute, I'm going to show you different companies that can do that for you that are more well known. But first, I want to talk about the next thing. So the next thing you're going to need that is very important, and in my opinion, it's necessary if you're going to do sea shipping or anything like that, because if you don't, it's going to be really complicated. And that is going to be a freight forwarder. So we're going to put freight forwarder over here. Now, what freight forwarders do is they are individuals or companies that help you do the entire shipment process. So that means they're going to handle the job of the carrier. They're also going to do the job of the customs broker. And I like to call this door-to-door shipping. They're going to handle everything for you from one place to the next, and you don't really have to worry about anything. So they're going to take it from your supplier, they're going to be the carrier, they're going to pick it up from the supplier, carry it to the boat, they're going to put it on the boat, handle all the everything the customs broker would do. So they're going to handle all the paperwork, all the regulations in order to get it into the United States. They're then going to take it all the way on the boat and be their carrier for the boat. They're then going to take it off the boat into your port, the nearest port to where your shipment needs to go. They're going to handle all the paperwork, all the regulations. Once it gets to the port, they're then going to take it from the port to the final destination, which is going to be, probably the Amazon warehouse, or if you're getting a sample product, your house. So a freight forwarder is going to do everything that a carrier and a customs broker does. So they are just a combined version of everything you need, basically. That is going to make things a lot simpler for you. You don't have to hire here and hire there and hire here. You hire one company and they're going to do it all for you and take all of the stress off of you. Now, people who do this are going to be DHL, FedEx, and UPS. Those are the main ones. That's what I'm saying. They can also be a carrier because they can carry the goods and do that thing. They don't have to be a freight forwarder, and meaning they don't have to be the customs broker and the carrier. They can just be the carrier if that's what you want them to do. But they can also become the carrier and the customs broker and do the paperwork plus the carrying, which is the best option. Now, the reason that they can do that is because they outsource to other individuals or companies that are customs brokers, and they get it at a cheaper price. So if you have a freight forwarder, you're going to end up paying a cheaper price than if you hired a carrier and a customs broker. So if you do it on your own, it's more stress and you're going to pay more money. And the reason for that is because when you go to an individual carrier and you pay for that good, and you go to an individual customs broker, you're paying them separately. They're two different companies. But when we go to a big company like DHL or UPS or FedEx or whatever company, they're offering both things in one, like a package, and they outsource, meaning the companies that they're outsourcing to, they're telling them basically going to get their customers for that customs broker. So in return, they're going to ask for cheaper prices. So you're going to get a cheaper price if you hire a freight forwarder, which is going to be the two things, the customs broker and the carrier in one. So it's a win-win, less stress and cheaper. So that is what I recommend every single time. Now that is what a freight forwarder is, and that is the most important term that you really need to know. You need to know all these once again, just to make yourself sound like you're more educated on the topic when you're negotiating, but that is what I recommend that you all go with. So let's go on to the next term. Now the next thing I'm going to be teaching you is going to be abbreviations for shipping terms, and it's very important that we know these things, only a few of them. But if you're trying to outsource to multiple different companies and get a customs broker and a carrier separate and get all these things separately, you're going to need to know all these things I'm about to teach you. But if you are just getting a freight forwarder like I recommend, then you really don't need to know all these. But it's also just good to know. That way, if your supplier throws it out there, you're going to know what it means and how to respond to it. So the first one that we're going to talk about is going to be FOB, and that stands for free on board. Now, what free on board means is you are going to be responsible for your products and items after they've been delivered to the nearest port. And that means everything's paid for. They're going to pick it up from the supplier, they're going to put it on the boat, and then they're going to drop it off at your port. But once it gets to your port, you are then responsible. You literally have to drive down to your nearest port that it got delivered to and handle them from there. Or you have to find another carrier and pay that carrier to pick it up at the port. Also, you probably will need a customs broker to handle the paperwork there once it gets to that port. and then it can be delivered to the Amazon warehouse. So that is something that we're not really going to want to use. We're not going to want to use FOB because it's going to be too complicated. You're going to have a carrier. Everything's going to be paid for until it gets to the port. Then you're going to need a new carrier. Then you're going to need probably a customs broker. I don't recommend that. I never do that. And but it's also just good to know, the more you know, the better. So the next term that we're going to talk about is going to be EXW or XWorks. A lot of people refer to it as XWorks, but technically I think it's EXW. So what this means, this is probably the most unused one. We really don't want to use this one because this basically means that we're asking how much it is to manufacture it without any help through shipping. So nobody's even going to pick it up from the supplier. So if you ask your supplier for XWorks and you say that that's all you want to pay for, the supplier's literally going to push the product out of their warehouse, and you are now responsible for every single thing after that. You're going to have to pick it up from the warehouse or the manufacturing plant or whatever it is and take it to the boat still in China, and you're going to have to ship it over here to the US, do all the customs broker stuff, do all the carrier stuff. So this is a no-go for sure. The only reason I would use XWorks or EXW is to get an initial quotation on my order. So if I'm asking the supplier, what is the EXW on this order? That basically means what is the final price after everything's manufactured with zero shipping costs. Now, that's the only time you would use it. You do not want to use that. That means you're going to have to get a carrier or a freight forwarder and then figure all this stuff out on your own and set it all up on your own. You don't want to do this. This places all the obligation on you, and everything is taken off of your supplier. Now, the next term is going to be CNF. CNF is also one I don't like to use. It basically means the supplier is going to be responsible for getting it to the boat, and from the boat to your nearest port, and then when it gets to the nearest port, just like FOB, you are now responsible from getting it to the port to the Amazon warehouse. And also that comes with zero insurance, so nothing's insured if you go through CNF. So we don't want to use that. That just puts more stress on the supplier, and you're not getting exactly what you want because then you have to figure it out once it gets to the port. And also you don't have insurance, so if anything happens to the boat or some crazy freak accident, then your products are not insured, and then you're responsible still for that. So we're not going to really use that one either, but it's also good to know. So the next one is going to be CIF, and this is going to be exactly like CNF. The way I like to tell these two apart is CNF, I like to say cost, and then the N stands for no insurance, and then F stands for freight. So CNF, cost, no insurance, freight. And then CIF is going to be cost, insurance, freight. So the only difference is it's going to involve insurance instead. So the supplier, if you go CIF, is going to take it to the boat, make it go from the boat to your nearest port. And just like FOB and CNF, you're responsible for everything after that. So then you have to figure out a carrier to get it to the Amazon warehouse after it arrives at your port, just like FOB and just like CNF. So all three of those we do not really want to use, but it's good to know. All right, guys, so this last one when it comes to shipping terms is going to be the main one that we want to focus on, and that's going to be DDP, and that's delivered duty paid. And that's going to be basically door-to-door shipping, or just like a freight forwarder, they're going to handle everything, and the responsibility is all on the seller. So the seller is going to take it from their door to your door, and they are going to handle and be responsible for the products from the time being manufactured until it arrives to you. So this is going to be the one that we want, DDP, delivered duty paid, basically also known as door to door. So that is the one that we're going to use all the time, especially for myself. I guess you don't need to do it all the time, but I recommend all the time that's what you use is DDP. With DDP, you're going to be paying everything up front to the seller or your supplier. And they are going to be handling everything because you paid for everything. You paid for the carrier, you paid for the customs broker, you paid for it to get to the boat, from the boat to your port, from the port to you or the Amazon warehouse. So DDP is going to put all of the responsibility on your supplier or your consignor or your exporter. So that is the one that we want to use, and I hope all these terms aren't too confusing. Make sure you go over it a few times, maybe take notes, go over your notes a few times. That way when you see these terms, you really know what they are. Okay guys, I'm back in the middle, and that's to help separate two things I'm about to talk about. And that is going to be FCL and LCL. Now what those both are referring to is going to be the freight on a boat. So if you've seen those giant shipping containers, that is going to be a container. And FCL means full container load, and LCL means less than container load. Now a container is 20 feet by 40 feet. So if you go FCL, it's going to be a full container, and that's going to be 20 feet by 40 feet. And that means you're filling up the entire container with your product, and that is going to make things a lot cheaper. So later on, if your product starts selling like crazy, and you literally want to order that many things, so like it depends on the size of your product, it could be like 10,000, that could save you a lot of money. You just got to make sure that your product is actually selling that fast, or it might sit in the Amazon warehouse and they might charge you extra money for storage fees because their products aren't moving after 6 months. So be careful with that. But if you do sell that much and you are a baller and you're making that much money, then definitely go with FCL, full container load. And that's going to be an entire container, an entire freight, 20 feet by 40 feet, full to the top of your stuff. And that'll save you a lot of money. Also, you could fill up most of it. Say you don't quite fill it up all the way. Sometimes they'll let you fill up close to all the way, or even I think like say you have half of the container full, I think you can pay still for the full container because they don't really care about what they're shipping. They care about how much money they're getting. So if you're willing to pay the full container load but only fill half of it, then do that. But the only reason you would do that is if it's cheaper. So if it's cheaper, might as well, right? And plus it's a win-win because they're getting the full amount for an entire container without dealing with as many people. So they're happy and you're happy because you're saving money. Even though you're paying for more space, it's saving you money, if that makes sense. So FCL, most of you guys won't even worry about because you may not even have to like order that much, or you might have a small product, so you would order 100,000 products and it still wouldn't fill it, so it's kind of pointless. LCL would be the other route, and that is going to be less than container load, and that is when you fill up a partial amount of a container and the rest of it is being rented by other people just like you. So you're basically renting a small space in the container, as well as multiple other people are renting the other spaces in the container. So say other Amazon sellers like yourself, there could be like 50 of you all in one container if you all have this right size order to fill up that certain amount of space. So LCL is what all of us are mainly going to be doing. That's all I use. I don't order 100,000 products yet, so I don't think I ever will. I don't even think anyone does, unless you have like the top selling product on Amazon. So, or if you sell a really big product, it depends. But for my strategies, you won't be. But LCL is going to be what most of us are going to be doing because it's going to be less than container load. We're going to be taking up and renting a small portion of the container, and that is going to be what we're going to be dealing with. So if you ever have to deal with that, remember LCL, less than container load, FCL, full container load. And one more thing on that is if you have a freight forwarder or you got DDP, deliver duty paid, your freight forwarder is going to be handling all that for you and getting you the best deal. So if it is the most profitable and in the best interest for yourself, and they see that buying a full container would save you more money, even if you're not filling the whole thing, they will handle all that for you. They're going to have your best interest in mind, and that's basically how they're making their money. That's what we're paying them for. So we ourselves, we can't really figure that out or negotiate that. They're going to handle that for us. Don't worry about how much it's going to be getting a full container or a portion of a container. Your freight forwarder is going to pick the best option for you when it comes to money. So one more time, let's wrap up this really quickly. So we, the buyer, the consignee, and the importer are going to be buying products and getting them manufactured from our supplier, our seller, and they're also going to be the consigner and the exporter. Now, those are the terms that we're going to be using for the two things. And after that, then we are going to let them know what kind of shipping plan we're going to want to do. So if you want to do the FOB or the CNF or the CIF or the DDP, that's when all that comes into play. So we are going to want to do, for my strategy, the DDP, obviously. And if you are getting air shipping in your first shipment or your second or third, and this is all up to you, then you don't really have to worry about that. Just tell them air shipping door to door and they do everything for you. But if not, and you want to handle the C shipping route later on to save money, then you're going to need to know these terms, and you're going to need to let them know what you want to do. So you got to tell them, okay, I want a DDP. I prefer using FedEx, or you could just ask them who they prefer using. And if it's a big company and you trust it, then tell them go ahead and use that. And you can tell them you want the DDP, basically door to door, ship it to my Amazon warehouse, give them the address, say, you guys are going to handle everything. I don't want to do anything. And that is what I recommend. And they will, on their own terms, hire their recommended freight forwarder as long as you're okay with it. And their freight forwarder is going to handle everything that the carrier would handle, the customs broker, and they're going to take it from, you know, A to B to C to D, which is your Amazon warehouse. So that is going to be the best route, is DDP, and basically door-to-door shipping for air or sea in the beginning. And recommend air first and then sea later once you get everything figured out and you figure out if your product's going to sell well and how frequently it's going to be sold and how much product and inventory is coming in and out. All that stuff plays into factor, and make sure that you take it all in and understand everything and watch this video a few times. And one more time to wrap up what a freight forwarder is versus a customs broker and carrier. So a freight forwarder is going to be a customs broker and carrier put into one. They're going to handle everything for you. They're going to do everything. They're going to make it simple. And those are examples for like FedEx, UPS, DHL, those things. And then on the other side, you can get a customs broker and a carrier, and those are two separate things. So your carrier could be DHL, UPS, FedEx, and your customs broker could be another company, an individual who you hire privately, or maybe another well-known and bigger company that's a customs brokerage. This is the route I don't recommend. This is the route I do recommend. This makes everything complicated and puts the most stress on you, and especially if it's your first time and you don't know how to deal with this stuff yet, don't go with this route. Your head will explode. I've never tried it, but I've heard bad things about it. I just do the easy route. I don't even know why you would want to make it hard on yourself. So that is what I recommend. I know this was a lot to take in. This is probably the hardest video so far on this course when it comes into taking information and memorizing things. So listen to what I said, follow it, and you will be okay. I promise. So I will see you guys in the next video.